What if you are not trapped by your patterns? What if you're actually trapped by your inability to see them? This is Dr. Courtney Hale, PhD, with video 4 in our Dashboard Light series. By now, we've explored two important questions. The compass light asks whether we're traveling in the direction that truly matters to us. The fuel light asks about the condition of the vehicle making the journey. Both of those are essential, but yet neither one fully explains one of the most curious experiences of being human. Have you ever noticed the friend who has the same situation over and over again? Have you ever noticed yourself doing the same things, even though you promised yourself that you wouldn't, and you've had a full recognition about why you shouldn't? Okay, so I'm sure we've all found ourselves saying, here we are again. How did we get here again? Perhaps it was a difficult relationship that felt strangely familiar. It could be the same conflict appearing in different workplaces, even though you've changed jobs. The same frustration emerging under different circumstances, or the same promise quietly dissolving despite your best efforts. The details change, the names change, the scenery changes, yet something about the experience feels oddly recognizable. So I've always found those moments fascinating. Intelligent people often assume that if they understand a pattern, they should immediately be able to stop repeating it. But my experience suggests otherwise. Understanding is valuable, but understanding alone rarely changes behavior, especially long term. If it did, none of us would procrastinate, lose our patience, overcommit ourselves, or eat something we already knew we'd regret an hour later. Knowledge is important. It simply isn't the whole story. One of the quieter assumptions we carry is that every decision we make is the result of careful, conscious thought. In reality, much of life unfolds through patterns that we've repeated so many times that we begin to treat them as automatic. They become familiar routines through the landscape of our lives. Familiarity has a curious way of affecting human beings. We don't always choose what serves us best. Quite often, we choose what feels most familiar instead. That's what I mean by a loop. When the loop light is blinking, that means that you're stuck in a loop. A loop is more than a habit. It's a recurring pattern of thinking, feeling, interpreting, or responding that quietly recreates a similar outcome again and again over time. Some loops are remarkably helpful. They support resilience, generosity, thoughtful leadership, and healthy relationships. Others quietly consume enormous resources while convincing us that the circumstances are entirely to blame. One of the reasons why these loops can be so difficult to recognize is that we usually experience them from the inside. Fish rarely spend much time discussing the nature of water. Likewise, human beings seldom question the assumptions that they've been living inside for years. We simply assume that our interpretation of events is the event itself. Occasionally, I hear someone say, "Why does this always happen to me?" It's an understandable question, but I found another question to be much more useful. What keeps making this pattern possible? Notice the difference. The first question looks for blame. The second question seeks understanding. Finding the force has never been about identifying what's wrong with people. It's about recognizing the hidden patterns quietly shaping their decisions. Once a pattern becomes visible, something remarkable happens. Choice begins returning to places where life previously felt automatic. That doesn't mean every loop disappears overnight. Human beings aren't software programs waiting for the latest update. Lasting change usually unfolds through repeated moments of awareness, followed by intentional practice or habit. We notice the pattern a little sooner. We pause a little longer before we act. Eventually, we discover that what once felt inevitable has now become optional. Perhaps that's one of the greatest gifts of awareness. It interrupts inevitability. The loop light isn't asking whether you have patterns. We all do. It's asking a far more interesting question. Which patterns are quietly shaping your life without your permission? Before our final conversation, I'd like to invite you to reflect on 5 questions about the loop light. 1. Are there situations that seem to repeat themselves regardless of where you are or who is involved? 2. What emotional reactions arrive so quickly that they feel almost automatic? 3. Which stories do you find yourself telling yourself about life over and over again? 4. Are those stories creating possibility or quietly limiting it? And 5. Finally, if someone who loved you were describing your recurring patterns, what might they notice that you've stopped seeing? So, don't rush to answer them. Just let them sit with you for a few days and contemplate them. The purpose isn't to judge yourself, it's to become curious enough that familiar patterns no longer remain invisible. In our final conversation, we'll explore the contract light, perhaps the most subtle dashboard light of all. Some of the most powerful decisions guiding our lives were never consciously made. They were agreements, often formed years ago, that quietly continue organizing our choices long after we've forgotten making them. So, this is Dr. Courtney Hale, PhD. I'm here with Finding the Force. You can join me for Compass Online, for a small group learning online, or for one on ones that will get you where you're going a lot quicker. Bye for now.